I want to go back through a few things that I've heard through times and confirm some stories if we can or not confirm. And I know you weren't at this point a general manager in the early 90s, but you were within the team. You were serving in a very strong role at that time. Can you confirm or deny the Chuck Knox, I wanted the kid from Mississippi rather than Dan McGwire story?
Well, I can't confirm. I was around at that time, obviously not part of any decision-making. There were a lot of things on the table. I remember that at that time. Chuck did voice his opinion often, and most of the time it was heard loud and clear. So he and Mike McCormick had a great relationship, as people know that have been Seahawks fans for a long time. Mike McCormick was the GM, Hall of Fame tackle. I was lucky, I'll be honest. I came up under guys that understood the game, the business, and for some reason took a liking to me and kind of just took me in under their wing. And I spent, almost 20 years with the Seahawks. So I saw a lot of people come and go, but I sure learned a lot from a lot of great people and minds in the business. So I don't know about that specific one, but when Chuck talked, we all listened, that's for sure.
Did he tend to be right on personnel matters in addition to being a good coach when he was talking about things? Because sometimes that's obviously with coaches, they'll be great coaches, but when it comes to them trying to get into the personnel matters, it's a different story.
Well, we were in good hands with Mike McCormick as our GM, and he was very good on the personnel end. I'll tell you what Chuck was really good at. Chuck was great at gathering information. He had guys, the Will McDonoughs of the world and all of the initial media guys. I don't know if you remember Will McDonough, but he was the John Clayton before John Clayton. In fact, he was John's mentor in the business. Longtime NBC media guy. Chuck did a great job of gathering information for us on the personnel side. And when I mean gather, he had intel on draft picks. He had intel on other teams, stuff that we couldn't get in our end of the business. So Chuck was really good at that. He understood especially offensive line play, because that's really what he came up as, an offensive line coach. So just think about it. We had a Hall of Fame offensive lineman as our GM, and Chuck Knox, a long time, great, really a Hall of Fame offensive line coach himself. So we were in good hands when it came to building an offensive line. And I think that was one of our strengths, at least during the 80s when Chuck was running the team. We had a really good offensive line, and that kind of endured and carried us for 10 or 12 years that Chuck was there.
Yeah, a creative running game for his time too, if I might say. You're not just we're going to plow into the A gap all day long, but he was willing to kind of attack from a variety of different angles too. Well, you start to ascend then, and it was not reportedly it wasn't McCormick that was saying that with Chuck. It was reportedly coming from ownership, as the story as it goes, that he was the guy that wanted McGwire. I can only guess. I think maybe Ken was a baseball fan or something.
I can add this. I can add this to that, and yes. Ken was a fan of Dan McGwire. Dan had Lee Steinberg as his agent. And Ken had a relationship with him, as did Ken Hoffman, a minority partner who was a baseball guy and was part owner of the Oakland A's at that time. So there were some ties to the agent for Dan McGwire, and that's may or may not have had a lot to do with it, but it was definitely a factor for sure.
Well, I don't have to tell you, it's always good when the owners start having some influence over those quarterback decisions, isn't it, Randy? It's always a good thing for you general managers. You love that, don't you? Isn't it just great?
I was gray at 30, I'll tell you that. And part of it was that.